We back, ladies and gents, with another reflection on the daily Vedanta, the daily podcast on the timeless philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. This is, as I note often, in terms of continuous study, this 5,000 plus year old philosophy is the oldest philosophy we have in humanity, dating back to the Vedas, the four oldest philosophical texts that we have across the globe, and the West kind of only discovered about 200 years ago. So it is new to us in the West, but it is the source of nearly all Eastern philosophy. I say all that because it's so interesting to me whenever I think about the fact that this timeless philosophy, the texts like the Vedas, the philosophical portion of the Vedas called the Upanishads, when I think about how I never came across these until I was in my 30s, and how it's remarkable, the power of these ideas. As Aldous Huxley called them, the perennial philosophy, called this philosophy the perennial philosophy because it manifests itself in every major tradition. You see it beneath the philosophy, beneath all of the rituals and the rites and the shoulds and the should nots. You see this root, this foundation, this philosophical core in nearly all major traditions. You have offshoots and certainly different names for these things. The Rig Veda even says it explicitly. Truth is one, sages call it by many names. And you certainly have interpretations within major traditions saying this is the only way. But each major tradition, Christianity, for example, has 30,000 different sects. Each major tradition has, well, let's just say, a lot of disagreement on the interpretations of that philosophy, of that tradition, of that religion. And within Christianity, you have things like Christian mysticism that maps to this nearly one-to-one. You have Hesychism in the Greek Orthodox Church that maps to these philosophical concepts. One-to-one, you have Christ's own words. It's remarkable. It's the quote that comes up often is people say, well, what about for our background? My wife and I, we grew up in Texas, and people saying, well, what about when Christ says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. None shall enter the kingdom except through me. And the simple response is he talking as a guy from Nazareth? Or is he speaking as God? If you believe his words are divine as any message from the Supreme, from God, then he's speaking as God, and there is no way to God except through God. The episode today is on this very topic, finding God. We talk a lot in our culture about purpose and meaning. What gives you meaning? A life full of meaning. But meaning is a function of purpose. Anytime we talk about meaning, or someone mentions meaning, or what gives you meaning, the thought that we should have is, well, what is the purpose? A stone on the side of the street might have meaning for someone, might not have any meaning for another. If you're a mason and you're trying to build a stone wall right there, that stone actually has a lot of meaning for you. If you're a pedestrian just walking by, if you're walking your dog, that stone might not have any meaning for you. So it comes down to purpose over meaning. Meaning, in other words, is a function, a derivative. It gets its value from the purpose at hand. So whenever I hear people talk about meaning, I often don't say it, but feel this nudge, because it's sometimes, as Vivekananda said, you just kick the soccer ball. You don't need to inject philosophy in every lunch or coffee conversation with a friend. But it can be helpful when a person is struggling, when someone you care about is struggling around meaning and purpose, to say, well, what do you feel like is your goal right now in life? What do you feel like is your highest purpose? For jumping to whether something does or doesn't have meaning, orient back to the foundation of where meaning gets its value from, which is the conversation around purpose. So what is your purpose in life? What do you feel is your highest calling? What do you feel like your goals are right now in this time in your life? Those are different colloquial ways where we can inquire about purpose. Then we can derive meaning. Does that job have any meaning for you? Well, not if it's soul crushing and it's pulling you away from, you feel a higher calling to spend more time with your children because they're in the ages of 0 to 10 and this job is 90-hour weeks. Maybe that job actually has anti-meaning. It is pulling you away from your purpose. So, purpose is the reorientation. And the salient thought here is that meaning is derived from purpose. Meaning is a function of purpose, not the other way around. So finding a career with meaning or finding community with meaning, that stems from what your purpose is. And most people don't know what their purpose is. What does this timeless philosophy say our purpose is? This philosophy says the purpose is to find what you're looking for. One way of defining that explicitly is to say we are all looking for freedom. We're all looking for freedom. That promotion that you might be looking for is just a derivation of a symbol of you looking for freedom. That fast red Lamborghini that attracts your eye, perhaps for some. That fast car, that's a symbol of freedom. Bright red colors, a symbol of self-expression, expressive freedom. That making partner at the law firm, that'll give you more, financial freedom. You'll be set. But what are we trying to get set for? What are these interim steps of freedom leading us towards? Well, obviously we've had moments in our lives where we thought, if I could just get into that college, if I could just get that dream job, and then we get these things. If I could just make this relationship work, if I could just get that lease for that apartment, and you get these things and nothing really changes. That's one of the hallmarks of what Swami will say, and at the ashram he'll say, doesn't really matter if you get it or not. Nothing happens. Nothing really changes. Because at the foundation of this philosophy, freedom is not out there. Freedom, like happiness, can only be found within. As Schopenhauer said, happiness is indeed difficult to find within oneself, but impossible to find anywhere else. So, this philosophy explicitly says what we're looking for, what we're trying to find is freedom. Another way that it gets articulated is we're looking for peace and prosperity. A free mind and free from the demands of desires that outweigh our means. That's poverty. Desires that outweigh our means. Means that outweigh our desires, that is prosperity. Another way of articulating it, you could say, is we're looking for God. Put simply, put colloquially, we're looking for God. That might be a Sunday service. That might be on your knees beside your bed. That might be through a career, 30-year career of service, thinking, okay, if I devote myself to others, if I follow these commandments that this or that tradition have handed down, then I'll be close to God. I'll find God. I won't be separated from God for a time or for eternity in some traditions. What I love about this philosophy is there are no shoulds or shouldn'ts. There are no shall nots. There are no shalls. There are no rites or rituals. Just philosophical principles that outline what we're actually looking for, that outline a manual for living life well. But they do ladder up to this, finding God. Where to find God? It's the same place as freedom. It's not out there. This philosophy is It is like a buffet. You can take certain principles, leave certain principles in the buffet. Maybe some work for you, some don't. This principle is one that I found a lot of value in, of tying all of these things together, whether the articulation that we choose, and language is so limited in what it's pointing to, but whether your favorite articulation is, well, yeah, I want freedom. This might help me. These principles might ladder up to help me find that. You might want happiness. You might want peace, prosperity. You might want to find God. But with that purpose of life, is to find that. And this philosophy says all of those are the same thing. And anything short of God will not feel like freedom, will not be happiness. It will be suffering or dissatisfaction, will not be peace. If we do not find the divinity within, as Vivekananda put it, the purpose of life is to manifest the divinity within us, to bring it forth. As Christ said in the Gospel of Thomas, bring forth what is within you, and what is within you will save you. As he said in the Gospels, the kingdom of heaven is within you. As we reorient from thinking these things we're looking for out there, getting that stamp of partner, getting that relationship, having that child, whatever, get that lease for the apartment. Once we start to reorient in the direction that all sages have pointed us towards, inward, when we start to orient to these higher ideals, like I want to feel freedom, not just kind of the defensive, I want to feel safe, lower ideals. Once you graduate beyond those, and I want to feel free, I want to feel loved and feel love for those around me. When we start to orient to those higher ideals, and we start to take them sincerely, wanting to pursue them, feeling like they are within arm's reach, that's what gives us the foundation for anything, maybe everything, to have meaning. That career that is maybe with a community that is pulling you away from manifesting the divinity within, finding freedom, finding happiness, being maybe used with golden handcuffs tied into a job and career where you're being used, abused in the most polite, pleasant way because your bosses don't want to rattle you too much, but not serving these higher ideals within you. Then you realize, oh, this career has anti-meaning. Doesn't just have meaning, it is actually pulling me away from my higher calling. Or you orient to the career that is in line with your wiring. A surrender of sorts into your wiring, into service towards others. And that might be as a lawyer. Make and bank. Charge what you should charge. And maybe it is 70 hours a week. But it is in service to the higher, not against what you're wired for because your parents said, you should be a lawyer, even though you know you're wired to be a musician, or you're wired to be perhaps a full-time parent, a third grade teacher, whatever it is, surrendering into that. Then you start to see the meaning or lack thereof of all of these different elements. And it starts to present a whole lot of clarity in what has meaning towards your purpose and what doesn't. So what is this grand reorientation around what has meaning and what doesn't? What should have meaning? What's worth fighting for? What's worth letting go of? What's worth pursuing? What's worth relinquishing? What's worth surrendering into? And what is a unnecessary knot of an obligation that is not needed in your life? The difference, the great reorientation, is towards understanding your purpose, articulating for yourself, whether it's these words or your own, what is your purpose? This timeless philosophy gives a great systematic approach to purpose. It's drenched in these different episodes. It's drenched in this book, Vedanta Treatise. Our purpose and why it serves us, our families, our communities, why it serves everyone around us, and why we feel more energy as we lean into that purpose. And therefore grants meaning to this or that, or shows the lack of meaning for these other things that might be distractions. That grand reorientation is one towards the right purpose, towards the purpose that gives you and generates energy within you over time, instead of the purpose that dissipates energy for you over time. And then it gives meaning. Does that stone have meaning for you? Or does it not? All derived from purpose and a clear understanding of what your purpose might be. It might be in this episode, it might not be. But one thing is clear, whether it is or isn't, is that meaning is a function of purpose. Understand your purpose, and you will understand the things, the relationships, the actions that have meaning in your life, and those that don't. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.